Hello, everyone. Imagine just for a moment that you wake up one morning and something feels strangely different, not frightening, not chaotic, but quietly unfamiliar. You step outside, expecting the soft glow of dawn, and instead you are met with a sky painted in two rising suns. Two spheres of light climbing over the horizon together, stretching your shadow in opposite directions. The world around you looks familiar, but there is a sense that everything has shifted ever so slightly, as if reality itself has been rewritten overnight. And in a way, it has. Welcome to a version of Earth that was never meant to be ours. A world born in double light. When we imagine two suns, we often picture a scene from distant galaxies or stories far removed from daily life. But what if this was not fiction? What if Earth truly orbited a pair of stars too massive, blazing giants locked in a gravitational dance? Suddenly, the gentle rhythm of our single-sun world becomes an extraordinary puzzle. Every rule that shaped our oceans, our seasons, our plants, our sleep, our technology, even the way our ancestors once understood time, all of it would be transformed. In this alternate world, daytime would not simply begin, it would dominate. The sky would rarely fall into full darkness. Nights, if they happened at all, would be strange and brief, more like deep twilight than true shadows. Creatures that rely on darkness would struggle to exist, while humans would constantly adjust to a life where rest becomes something we must fight for instead of something that arrives naturally. Temperature would rise, not dramatically at first, but steadily enough to push some regions into constant warmth. Enough to reshape coastlines and patterns of rain. Forests would thin, deserts would grow, and every living thing, from the smallest seed to the tallest city, would have to adapt to a world overflowing with light. But beyond the science and the changes, there is a deeper question. How would humanity feel, think, and act in a world with two suns? How would culture evolve when the sky never fully sleeps? How would stories, beliefs, and dreams shift under the weight of constant daylight? Tonight, we step into that imagined universe not to fear it, but to explore its wonders. A world that might have been. A world illuminated twice. In a world ruled by two suns, the very idea of night begins to fade into something almost mythical. Endless daylight, the death of night, is not just a poetic phrase, it is the everyday reality of a planet caught between two constant sources of light. Imagine looking up at the sky and realizing that darkness is no longer a guarantee, no longer a natural rhythm you can depend on. Instead, night becomes a fleeting visitor, slipping through the gaps between the two suns only when their orbits allow a moment of alignment. For most of human history, night has been more than just the absence of light. It has been a boundary, a pause, a signal for rest, reflection, recovery, and imagination. It shaped our earliest stories, our ancient calendars, and the way our bodies understand time. But in a double-sun world, the sky rarely dims enough to let the stars come through. The constellations that guided sailors, farmers, and wanderers lose their place. The Milky Way becomes only a faint memory, washed away by an eternal glow. As daylight stretches on without end, our internal clocks begin to drift. Without a true night, our sense of time softens. Days blur together in one long, warm continuum. People begin to sleep in shorter cycles, broken into fragments instead of deep stretches. Artificial darkness shutters, underground rooms, shaded shelters becomes essential, not for luxury, but for survival. When the world forgets how to sleep, we are forced to remake the idea of rest from the ground up. Animals suffer the first confusion. Species that hunt at night wander the glowing landscape without guidance. Creatures that rely on dark to hide lose their safety. Plants that open and close their petals with the rhythm of sunlight must adapt or disappear. The natural world becomes a place of constant activity, and ecosystems tilt toward imbalance. Yet, in the middle of this strange brightness, something fascinating happens. People start to redefine what it means to live in a world without night. Instead of being governed by the sky, societies begin to shape their own schedules. New traditions emerge: quiet hours, shadow rituals, artificial twilight celebrations. Humans, as always, learn to adjust. But the absence of night changes more than habits, it changes identity. When the world never sleeps, neither does the imagination. And somewhere in the constant light, we realize how deeply we once depended on darkness. As the twin suns climb higher in the sky, their combined warmth becomes the defining force of this alternate Earth. Heat that never ends is not a drought, not a season, not even a climate event. It is a permanent condition, a new normal that slowly reshapes everything from the color of the land to the heartbeat of humanity. The warmth is not instantly destructive. It does not arrive as a burning wave. Instead, it creeps in quietly, almost gently, like an early summer that never quite ends. The first changes appear subtle. Mornings grow warmer, sunsets linger in a deep golden haze, and the chill of dawn becomes a rarity. But with two suns sharing the sky, even these small shifts build into something far greater. The Earth absorbs more energy than it can release, and the balance that once kept our world comfortable begins to tilt. Forests feel the pressure first. Moist soil dries faster, leaves curl at their edges. Birds migrate earlier, searching for cooler air that barely exists anymore. Lakes shrink. Rivers thin. The great green landscapes that supported countless species start fading into lighter shades: olive, dusty brown, and eventually the pale gold of stressed vegetation. Even the wind changes. It moves with a warm breath, no longer carrying the crisp coolness that once signaled evening's approach. For people, the heat brings a new pattern of life. Shade becomes valuable. Early mornings and late evenings turn into the only hours suitable for work, travel, or gathering. Cities redesign themselves with reflective surfaces, deeper shadows, and narrow streets that trap patches of temporary coolness. Fabrics, homes, transportation, all are re-engineered to cope with the constant glow above. The human body tries to adapt, but never fully succeeds. Fatigue becomes common. Rest becomes difficult. The warmth presses in during every moment, whispering a reminder that this world is no longer shaped for comfort, but for endurance. Even culture begins to shift. Storytelling traditions evolve around survival. Architecture prioritizes protection, and entire communities move toward higher elevations where the air still carries a trace of relief. Yet, despite the challenges, this world holds an odd beauty. Sunlit mountains shine with metallic brilliance. Oceans glitter with two reflections instead of one. The horizon glows with layered halos. It is a landscape transformed, not gentle, not forgiving, but undeniably mesmerizing. Still, beneath the shimmer, one truth remains: heat touches everything, changing it slowly, permanently, and without pause. In a world with two suns, warmth becomes more than weather, it becomes destiny. As the two suns continue to pour their combined energy across the planet, the atmosphere begins to respond in ways that are anything but predictable. A climate spiraling out of control is not a sudden event, it is a slow unraveling. One weather pattern changes, then another, and then another, until the entire system behaves like a machine with too many gears turning at once. The Earth has always balanced warmth, wind, and water with a kind of quiet precision. But in this double-sun world, that balance slips further from reach every day. Warm oceans expand and stir. Surface temperatures rise, feeding storms with more power than they were ever meant to hold. What used to be gentle seasonal rains become erratic bursts of downpour, followed by long stretches of dry heat that crack the soil. Rivers swell and shrink unpredictably. Coastal regions transform into places of constant watchfulness, where a calm morning can shift into a violent tempest by afternoon. Winds grow stronger as the atmosphere tries to distribute the excess heat. Gusts that were once mild now roar across plains, reshaping dunes, flattening grasslands, and carving new paths through weakened forests. Even familiar weather patterns, the monsoons, the trade winds, the gentle ocean breezes begin to drift into new territories, throwing both nature and humanity into a cycle of constant adjustment. Deserts, once confined to predictable climates, start creeping outward. Sand takes over the edges of farmlands. Heat-hardened soil spreads into areas that once thrived with crops. Entire ecosystems shift as animals follow the shrinking pockets of stable weather, creating unexpected migrations and new competition for resources. Plants that relied on seasonal cues become confused. Some bloom too early, others not at all. For humans, the unpredictability becomes the greatest challenge. Planning becomes harder. Farming becomes a gamble. Construction, travel, and energy systems must adapt to storms that have no pattern and temperatures that can swing sharply without warning. Communities begin to relocate toward regions with more reliable climates, higher elevations, northern latitudes, sheltered valleys. Technology evolves quickly, not out of ambition but necessity. Yet even in this turmoil, life pushes forward. People learn to read the skies differently, to design shelters suited for shifting winds, to develop farming methods that resist the erratic seasons. We adapt as we always have, but with the uneasy understanding that the climate is no longer a partner. It has become a powerful, unpredictable force shaped by two relentless suns. As the heat continues its steady rise, the most dramatic transformation unfolds at the planet's edges, where ice has guarded Earth's balance for millions of years. The melting of the poles is not a single moment of collapse, but a long, slow surrender. The frozen north and south, once symbols of endurance and silence, begin to thin beneath the unending glow of two suns. What was once solid, ancient, and immovable now softens day by day. The first signs are quiet. Sheets of sea ice that normally expand and retreat with the seasons stop returning to their full size. Edges crumble sooner. White landscapes that once reflected sunlight begin to fade into slushy pools and patches of exposed rock. The sound of distant cracking, normally a rhythm of polar life, grows more frequent, echoing across waters that were never meant to be ice-free. As the reflective ice disappears, a chain reaction ignites. Darker oceans absorb even more heat, accelerating the thaw. Glaciers, those slow, patient rivers of ice that took thousands of years to form, begin moving faster, sliding toward the sea with increasing urgency. Some crumble at their edges. Others break off in massive slabs that drift away, melting from below as warmer waters lap against them. The poles are no longer guardians of the planet's coolness. They become reminders of how quickly stability can shift under constant brightness. Sea levels begin to rise, at first subtly, then noticeably. Low-lying coastlines tighten their defenses. Homes near the water adapt with platforms, barriers, and evacuation plans. In some places, entire communities move inland, not because of fear, but because the land itself has begun to change shape. Beaches disappear. Marshes expand. Salt water reaches into freshwater systems, altering the habitats of fish, birds, and plants. The map of Earth redraws itself with each passing decade. But beyond the physical transformation, there is a sense of loss felt across the world. The poles were places of wonder, vast, untouched, silent. They were reminders that Earth could still hold mystery, still cradle spaces where time moved slowly. As they melt, the planet feels smaller, brighter, and less anchored. Yet even in this warming world, life pushes forward. Scientists, explorers, and communities adapt to new realities. They study the shifting landscapes, protect vulnerable species, and build technologies meant to preserve what remains. In the reflection of the melting ice, humanity sees a truth it can no longer ignore. Under two suns, nothing stays the same for long. As the poles melt and the climate twists into new patterns, the living world, the forests, the rivers, the hidden roots beneath the soil begins to feel the strain more deeply than anything else. Plants and Animals on the Edge describes a transformation that unfolds quietly at first, almost invisibly. But beneath the glow of two suns, every leaf, every feather, every breath taken by the creatures of Earth starts to change. Plants, the silent architects of our world, react first. Many of them evolved under a precise balance of sunlight and darkness. They open with dawn, close with dusk, and rest in the protective coolness of night. But in a world where night barely touches the land, that rhythm breaks. Some plants refuse to close at all, forced into constant activity they were never designed for. Others wither under the relentless heat, their roots unable to hold moisture in the drying soil. Forests thin out. Shade becomes rare. Even the great jungles, those dense green realms bursting with life, begin to shrink as temperatures climb beyond their limits. Animals feel this change as instinct collides with a world they no longer recognize. Creatures of the night, the hunters, the wanderers, the quiet observers lose the darkness they depended on for survival. Their movements become confused, patterns disrupted, senses overwhelmed by constant brightness. Some try to adapt, shifting their schedules to the brief slivers of twilight that remain. Others migrate, pushing into new territories where shadows are still deep enough for safety. But not all species can move, and not all can change quickly enough. Daytime animals suffer in different ways. With constant sunlight, they must search harder for food, hide longer from heat, and defend shrinking territories. Waterholes evaporate faster. Grasslands turn brittle. Prey animals wander farther than they should, while predators follow them into unfamiliar paths. The delicate balance of ecosystems' relationships refined over countless generations begins to tilt. In oceans, coral reefs struggle as warmer waters creep across their surfaces. Fish populations shift. Some species disappear from their native regions, replaced by others seeking cooler depths. The underwater world, once stable and predictable, becomes a landscape of drifting patterns. Yet even in the middle of this upheaval, life continues to reach for survival. New behaviors emerge. Some species evolve unexpected traits, shorter cycles, altered senses, new patterns of communication. Nature is strained, pushed, reshaped but not silent. It whispers through every adaptation that life will fight to endure, even under two suns. As the natural world bends under the pressure of two suns, humanity faces a truth it can no longer ignore. Survival requires reinvention. Cities forced underground marks the moment when people stop trying to fight the brightness above and instead choose to build their future beneath it. At first, the shift seems unthinkable. Humans have always lived under open skies, shaped their cities around sunlight, and celebrated the day as a sign of life. But when daylight becomes endless and heat grows unbearable, the ground itself begins to look like shelter. The earliest underground settlements start as temporary refuges, cool tunnels carved into hillsides, reinforced basements connected through long corridors, old mines transformed into improvised neighborhoods. But what begins as a necessity slowly becomes a design philosophy. Engineers, architects, and scientists join forces to imagine cities built not upward, but downward, layered communities protected from the relentless warmth above. These underground cities evolve with surprising elegance. Walls are lined with materials that deflect heat. Caverns expand into wide plazas illuminated by soft, artificial light designed to mimic gentle dawn instead of the blazing glare outside. Airflow systems circulate cool currents through narrow streets. Water storage becomes central to every district, collected and preserved with meticulous care. Life grows quieter, more deliberate, shaped by the hum of well-designed technology rather than the rhythm of the changing sky. Above ground, cities do not disappear completely, but they change. What remains are skeletal structures, reflective towers capturing solar energy, greenhouses shaded by engineered canopies, and transport systems built for speed rather than comfort. People travel to the surface only for tasks that cannot be done below maintenance, observation, harvesting energy, and return quickly before the heat settles into their bones. Inside the underground world, society begins to adapt in ways no one expected. Community life grows closer, interconnected by walkways and shared spaces. Art becomes softer, shaped by shadow and gentle light. Schools teach children not only science and history, but how to navigate between the surface world of harsh brilliance and the subterranean world of quiet resilience. New traditions emerge: celebrations of cool hours, storytelling sessions during artificial twilight, architect festivals dedicated to designing deeper, safer layers. And yet, people never fully forget the sky. Even in cities carved into stone, there remains a longing for open horizons. Some communities build viewing chambers with heat-shielded lenses, allowing glimpses of the double suns without danger. Others plant underground gardens lit by engineered wavelengths, recreating the feeling of life once nurtured by a single star. Humanity adapts. It endures. It builds a new kind of home, one shaped not by defiance, but by understanding. Beneath the earth, shielded from two unending suns, life continues to find a way. Even as humanity retreats underground and nature reshapes itself beneath the twin suns, a deeper force begins to reveal its influence, one we cannot see, cannot touch, but can feel in the shifting rhythm of the world around us. A battle of gravity is the invisible conflict at the heart of every system with two stars. It is not dramatic at first. Nothing cracks. Nothing shatters. But slowly, quietly, gravity begins to tug at Earth from more than one direction, testing the stability that life has relied on for millions of years. In our familiar world, the sun's gravity holds everything in place. The planets move with steady confidence around a single center, each orbit predictable. But in a double sun system, there is no single anchor. The two stars pull at each other, dance around a shared point, and extend their influence in overlapping waves. Earth, caught between these forces, becomes like a ship steering through shifting tides, sometimes stable, sometimes gently drifting off course. At first, the changes seem harmless. Seasons lengthen or shorten slightly. The path of Earth's orbit stretches into a shape just a little less circular. Days grow longer by a breath, shorter by another. But as the suns move through their own cycles, the gravitational push and pull becomes more complex. Some years bring extra warmth, others unexpected cooling, creating a pattern of fluctuations that feel almost alive. Tides respond next. Oceans rise and fall in unfamiliar rhythms as gravitational forces from the twin stars interact with Earth's moon. Coastlines, already stressed by melting ice, face water patterns that refuse to stay consistent. Fishermen adapt. Researchers measure. Communities adjust their routines to the new breathing pattern of the sea. Over time, subtle instability becomes harder to ignore. The Earth's orbit may drift closer to one sun during certain phases, creating intense heat spikes before swinging outward again into softer temperatures. These shifts are not catastrophic on their own, but together they begin to build a sense of unpredictability, a reminder that Earth is no longer moving through a calm cosmic environment, but through a tug-of-war far beyond human control. Yet even in the face of these forces, humanity continues to study and adapt. Scientists model orbital paths, build warning systems, and learn to predict fluctuations long before they arrive. Underground cities expand deeper to avoid the occasional heat surges on the surface. Life does not give up. It recalibrates. The battle of gravity never ends. It is a quiet contest between two colossal stars, shaping the world in ways both subtle and profound. And Earth, small but determined, continues to navigate the space between them. For all the chaos brought by two suns, the endless daylight, the rising heat, the unstable climate, the shifting orbit, there remains a surprising truth at the heart of this imagined world. Survival is still possible. A slight chance of survival is not built on miracles or impossible luck, but on the rare and delicate balance that can exist within a system of two stars. In the right configuration, with the right orbits, and with just enough distance, a world like Earth could, against all odds, find its place in the glow of twin suns. Astrophysicists call this the stable zone of a binary star system, a narrow region where gravity, heat, and light settle into a rhythm that does not tear planets apart. If the two suns orbit each other tightly, locked close together like twins holding hands, Earth could orbit around them both as if they were a single point. From our view, the sky would still hold two lights, but the gravitational chaos would soften, replaced by a smoother cosmic pattern. Conditions could stabilize. Seasons might return to a recognizable cycle, even if warmer and brighter. Life could regain some measure of predictability. In such a world, humans may begin to reclaim the surface slowly. Buildings would rise again, not tall, reflective towers, but low, heat-resistant structures designed to blend into the environment rather than challenge it. Agriculture would adapt with new crops, engineered to thrive in intense light. Cities might alternate between surface and underground zones, following the natural shifts in heat throughout the year. This version of humanity would be more deliberate, more careful, always aware that survival depends on respecting the forces above. Nature, too, would find its footing. Some species would vanish forever, but others would adapt with surprising creativity. Plants could develop thicker leaves to protect moisture. Animals might evolve, shorter sleep cycles, new senses, or new patterns of behavior suited for a world with perpetual glow. Forests could return not in the old form, but as tougher, more heat-tolerant ecosystems built on resilience. And in the middle of all this, culture would transform. People might celebrate the double dawn, honor the rare moments when shadows meet, or build rituals around the shifting patterns of light. Art would reflect the brightness. Philosophy would reflect the struggle. Science would flourish, driven by the need to understand the cosmic dance, keeping their world alive. This future would not be easy. It would not resemble the Earth we know. But it would be living, breathing, changing, adapting. Even under two suns, survival is not a dream. It is a possibility, fragile yet real, waiting in the space between disaster and resilience. After journeying through the imagined world of two suns, a world of constant daylight, rising heat, shifting climates, melting poles, and underground cities, we return to a quieter realization. This entire thought experiment is not just about a different Earth. It is a reflection of our real one. What this tells us about our real sun is the final thread that ties everything together, reminding us that the star we orbit today is not simply a source of light, but the foundation of every rhythm, every season, every breath we take. In imagining twin suns pulling Earth into instability, we suddenly see how perfectly balanced our current world truly is. Our single sun gives us a day that is long enough to work, but short enough to rest. It warms us without overwhelming us. It guides oceans, winds, migrations, and plant cycles with a consistency that makes life possible. Even the simplest routines, sleeping, waking, growing food, building cities, depend on this stability more deeply than we often realize. In the world of two suns, night becomes a rare treasure. Here on Earth, night arrives faithfully, offering moments of calm, reflection, and renewal that shape our health and culture. Darkness inspires stories, art, dreams, and science. It lets us see the stars, navigate oceans, and imagine our place in the universe. Without it, our minds and bodies would lose something essential. Through contrast, we learn how precious the balance between day and night truly is. The chaos of double gravity reveals another truth. Our sun's gravitational pull is not just a force, it is an anchor. It keeps Earth on a path so predictable that ancient civilizations could build calendars simply by observing shadows. That stability is what allows forests to grow, species to evolve, and human society to flourish. Even the underground cities of our imagined world whisper a lesson about resilience. They show how life could adapt if pushed to extremes, but also how fortunate we are that we do not need such drastic survival strategies today. Our Earth is not perfect, but it is stable enough to give us space to thrive, innovate, and dream. In the end, exploring a world with two suns brings us back to a gentle truth. The universe is full of chaos, but somehow we were given a star that supports life with extraordinary balance. Our sun does not ask for anything. It simply shines steadily, reliably, patiently giving Earth the gift of conditions that are rare in the cosmos. And maybe after imagining what could have been, we can appreciate a little more the world we already have. When we step back from this imagined Earth, an Earth lit by two suns, reshaped by endless daylight, shifting climates, vanishing nights, melting poles, and cities hidden beneath the ground, we begin to see the full picture. This journey was not just a tour through a different world. It was a reminder of how delicate, rare, and beautifully balanced our real planet is. Every system we depend on, from the rhythm of night and day to the quiet reliability of our seasons, exists because we orbit one steady star. A single sun that shines just enough, warms just enough, and rests just enough to allow life to flourish in all its forms. Imagining a world with two suns shows us not only how easily that balance could unravel, but how extraordinary it is that our world works at all. And maybe that is the quiet truth hidden inside this what if. That the universe is vast, unpredictable, and full of worlds very different from ours, but somehow we exist on one that gives us exactly what we need to grow, to imagine, and to dream. Thank you for wandering through this alternate universe with me tonight. If you enjoyed this journey, feel free to return anytime. We have many more mysteries waiting just beyond the horizon. See you in the next story.